Okay, so starting,
All right. You're a genius.
just restart the computer enough times and hopefully it works. But anyway, welcome to the last SCREE meeting of the fiscal year. And I'm joined here, I'm Margaret Della, Chair of SCREE, and joined by my colleagues Bob Bender and Sebastian Chidlapoli. Cesar is feeling unwell this evening, and hopefully Adiana will join us. Kelly Buford, her last meeting was last month or 2 months ago. So we are going to get started in covering the bulk of our interim report. That's mostly where we're gonna spend time tonight. So we'll be screen sharing on a draft of our interim report that we send to the board every year at the end of the fiscal year. And so right now we're working on some of the pieces around that. So I know Cesar just sent
Yeah.
an email with the activities, so first things first, I'm just gonna pull up the draft of the executive summary. And I'm not sure if anyone had a chance to take a look at this. But I don't know, I was looking back at the last several executive summaries, and I feel like they really sort of were an effort to draw attention and raise the alarm bells to what was going on, and now I feel like we're in it. And so then I was like, well, let me go back to 2020 and see how far we've come. And so that gave me some grounding perspective on how far we have come, in the sense of working on combating hate, and rather than it just being a conversation within these four walls, that our colleagues on standing committees have sort of taken the baton and held those conversations in their own respective topics, their own meetings, put it on the agenda, everything from housing to education to public safety, health and hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where I thought, it's our 5th year technically. While this is our 6th report, because we had sort of an interim report. But that's sort of the inspiration for this summary, to acknowledge how everyone is doing something, everyone's doing their part in whatever way they can. And how do we keep the thread? How do we keep connected? How do we do more? Is kind of where I left things off. So, that being said, what were your first impressions, or
Well,
where should we take it from here?
well, can I comment on the report? Because I did get a chance to read it. I didn't get a chance to send you any comments before the meeting, Margaret. But on the report itself, and I'm not gonna bother about, small edits, that sort of thing. I wanna just deal with something more substantive. On the second page of the interim report, under combating hate resource guide, I think there's a word missing here in that first line. It says finalized in guide navigates neighbors. I'm a little confused by the syntax there.
Finalized guide navigates neighbors through.
Finalized guide, good, that makes sense, get that in out of there, okay. Okay, and then down below, it says see updated activities here, and was that supposed to be a link?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be the link
Okay,
to the form that sits on the SCREE webpage.
okay, all right, good, that's what I wanted to check on. It's not active now, but yeah, okay. And the only other thing I had was you mentioned the civil discourse and breaking bread a little farther down on this page. uh, at the March meeting, I think, I mean, it doesn't, I don't know what, you intended. I'm not sure that doing this every month is practical, but I think at the March meeting, we said, we thought the time to do it was the September meeting, the first meeting of
Uh-huh.
the year, which I
Mhm.
think is a great idea to do something like this. Get, because there are people on the board right now who've been on the board since September, and I still don't really know who
Yeah,
they are.
yeah,
So it would be wonderful to do something like this, and the ideal time to do it is at the first board meeting, just before the first board meeting,
okay.
yeah.
So in the year ahead, Scree proposes, September,
What does it say, share a meal together and bond before the full board agenda, well, I think what you meant there was before the monthly
Meeting.
board meeting, right, not agenda. But I think we might say September
yeah,
board meeting,
okay,
because it is an excellent idea. I have a couple of other small edits I'll send to you,
okay,
but, they're not substantive.
okay.
So thanks, and I thought it was a very good report.
Well, thanks. One of the things that I was thinking about, that I have been thinking about that, I feel like we're usually always pushing the, well, in some respects, trying to, take a very realistic, snapshot of where we are. And, one of the things that sort of stood out to me was, in order to be able to looking forward, civil discourse, also requires, civil rights and protections of those rights. And so, do we want to comment on the work is necessary and everyone doing their part is what we need and it's the right thing to do? And we also need the rule of law to be upheld and, the protections of people's, rights and liberties in order to continue this work.
Well, you do allude to this on the first page, in the final paragraph there. In 2025, we are a community in crisis, and you go on to mention, the increase in hate crimes, reports of hate crimes, and then you also say a little farther down, an alarming threat increase. I would say increase in threats, but whatever, targeting news reporters and students, as according to the Department of Justice. I mean, the very name of this committee is already, a contradiction of the current state of affairs.
Yeah.
Where equity is one of those words that we're not supposed to use anymore. So, the existence of this committee and the business of this committee is in itself, a refutation of the arguments that are being made today. I personally, I don't know that you need to spell it out more than that, but, that's up to you if you feel you want to.
Yeah, I do. I think that's a great way of putting it. What do you think, Sebastian?
I think one thing, I think when we started the discussion, we discussed about differentiating hate from free speech,
Yeah.
right? And we see that in the current climate, right? How a scenario can be taken and, well, it can be called a free speech or it can be called hate. And both ways, right? I don't know, I mean, the threat to free speech and taking the free speech and making it hate,
Yeah.
people can engineer it now. Which I don't think we
Yeah.
discussed that potential of that scenario when we actually started these discussions, but we know that it can be engineered, right? Both ways. I mean, you could take hate and engineer it into free speech, and free speech can be engineered into hate, with some real consequences now. We really didn't go in detail throughout the year because honestly, we didn't really think that it would happen to this extent as we see now. So I don't know whether we should mention something about free speech or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great point. And, to your, I guess the connection is that, you know, everyone is,
Yeah.
you know, like, looking at,
I think-
actions of
yeah.
anti-Semitism, and using,
Yeah,
free speech
And we-
as
and we-
that's
sort of
a
like
perfect
cudgel
example,
to-
because there
yeah.
is genuine anti-Semitic speech.
Mhm.
And then there is also speech that's being mislabeled as anti-Semitic
Mhm.
as a way of stopping that speech from
Mhm.
taking place.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess somewhere in here, and I think you, if you don't say this outright, you certainly allude to it, is that, free speech itself is under threat. You say something here about threats to news reporters and
Mhm.
students. I mean, maybe what that should say is, you know, the threat to free speech by
Yeah.
mislabeling it. Because
It's
one
so,
group or
it's
another
so
finds
gray
it
when it is engineered, it's so gray that even courts, you could see courts find it difficult to really say if it is hate or
right,
if it's free speech, so if you present the case as hate,
mhm,
then there is enough thing to make hate out of it,
mhm,
and, so it's very difficult and a gray area where hate ends and where free speech ends and where hate starts and hate ends and free speech
Mhm.
starts, so.
mhm,
I
Yeah.
don't think we could, we were not able to see that it would be in action like as we speak now towards
mhm.
in 2025. So,
Well, I think you're right, Sebastian, say there is a gray area where, you know, reasonable people can disagree about,
Yeah.
whether some, you know, but that it's also being intentionally misused by some people to stop free speech.
Mhm.
and pretty much all organizations, who depend on federal grants or write grants to the federal government drop DEI.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm,
Because if they see DEI on there,
that's right,
they're not getting federal grant and their people are scared.
yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah,
how do we word it? How do we put it? I think it's not right for us to stay silent about it, but,
mm-hmm,
uh, well, we have to,
Yeah.
I mean, although it came towards the end of our year for this
Mhm.
committee, but I think we should mention it because maybe next year people should take it and
mm-hmm,
give a serious look into how this is gonna affect our community.
mm-hmm.
Or institutions, organizations and community accessing funds or getting cuts and not able to provide services,
Mhm.
things.
Why don't we each put something together, okay, each one of us? Because I think we all agree that we do need to address this and, you know, just finding the right way to phrase it. So why don't we all, three of us put it together and exchange with each other, and Margaret, you'll make the decision,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Do that, you know, as soon as we
Yeah.
can. Margaret, I wanted to ask, where is, or maybe you haven't put this together yet, but the compilation of what the different committees said they have done this year about equity?
Yeah, so this is it. Let me share because I feel a little bit more comfortable in sharing this.
Mhm.
But Cesar just sent this. We did receive, see.
Uh-huh.
Oh. Um, So these are all separate. Let me pull up the. Let me pull up the. Just so that you can see what it does look like. This is last year, so we separate them by, the office, generally
Mhm.
office, what the office has supported, and then we break it down by, standing committees.
Mhm.
So we, basically, the most recent bullet points will fall at the top. So I will update this based on what Cesar sent.
Okay,
So here's what he sent. So this looks like a housing bullet point, Department of Finance presented on housing benefits. Attended the mayor's roundtable for older adults and
Mhm.
able to speak to what the community of
This-
older adults need.
yeah, this is the aging committee, I would think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so maybe this is also
It
aging.
might be, yeah.
Corridor walkthrough, so this is economic development.
Mhm.
Oops. Oops. Hmm. Economic
Mhm.
development, the walkthrough, resources for small businesses,
Mhm.
lighting of the menorah.
That's an annual event.
Yeah, I think that's the district office.
I think that's actually the education, libraries and community
Oh,
affairs.
okay.
Because if you look at the next one, that clearly is education, libraries and cultural affairs.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
great,
So-
intergenerational.
Uh-huh.
How discussions about the elimination of the federal education department,
Mhm.
mid-year cuts for local schools.
Are all those points relevant to SCREE or?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the menorah lighting is real, I mean, that's an annual event that, you know. I don't object to it, I just don't think it's,
I mean, it looks like a summary of the activities in
Yeah, it does.
general,
It
not
does.
the equity related activities, so
yeah,
maybe they were confused.
yeah, I mean, if you keep going down, it's all educational libraries, service in the branch libraries, et cetera,
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, I do think that this is equity related, I think that's,
Yeah, okay.
um,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the libraries tend to serve a certain population, which is mostly younger and older.
yeah. Okay, Department of Sanitation, regulations around composting. Daylighting Tibbetts Brook, that is related to ENS.
Mhm.
Environmental justice work that's been
Mhm.
ongoing. Flood preparedness, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah,
culturally competent mental health, trauma-based care, this must be health and hospitals.
mhm.
Let's see. Hmm. And then it's rights, so this must
That's
be
housing,
housing.
yeah. Yeah, housing
Oops.
preservation and
Vision
development.
Inspire. Yeah,
The one after that is health.
this one here,
No.
this one,
No, if you scroll up. The first one, that one is housing and the second one is health and human. Oh,
Okay.
no, sorry.
No, that's,
No, not that one, the one before that, yeah, okay. Yeah, you already marked it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
mhm.
okay. Yeah, this is great, this is, I didn't know about this. Is this? Well, it's gotta be youth.
That makes sense, yes.
Amend open meetings law.
I don't know how that's the Equity issue. I'm
Don't
having-
get me started on.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing that as an equity issue.
Okay,
That has
expansion
to
of
be,
tree canopy,
uh,
this must be parks.
yeah,
And I know Farah had sent a bunch in. Okay. So I will take these and add them to this list.
mhm.
Let's
We
see.
don't have from public safety, right? Have you seen anything from public safety?
I thought Ed had sent us one. I'm pretty sure he did. I'll go back. I think he sent it over the weekend. Yes, he did send it. So I will, I will open this and, add it. Sorry, Ed, we will make sure that public safety is added. Okay. Let's see, who else are we missing? Budget, I think we can continue this. The budget, I think, that's been ongoing,
Mhm.
making sure that we invest in, throughout the community, especially where it's needed most.
Mhm.
ENS, we have
Maybe traffic is missing.
all traffic and transportation. Land use. Public safety, we will add youth, we have this one. Department of Veterans Affairs. I think that's it. So at least for our bullet points, I mean, we will highlight the resources from the deputy commissioner who presented last
Mhm.
time. She gave out some really good resources. We'll link to our little resource guide here. Are there any other things that we should add to our own bullets?
I think those two are the, I
Okay,
think the resource guide is the biggest achievement.
yeah,
The map that you put together, Margaret, that's a separate issue, or do you wanna incorporate that here, or? Maybe
Yeah.
just have a link to it or a
Yeah.
reference to it?
yeah, we could for the budget committee.
Mhm.
Or it can also be linked under screen. Yeah, just so that it gets more eyeballs.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. I think that's it then. I will, okay, then the other thing is, so this is the report that we update annually.
Mhm.
Let's see, there were a couple of questions that I think I had for you too. Oh, was also gonna ask, in terms of the summary, or perhaps we should add in some text here about the ERA. I know we haven't been able to get any experts on this topic, but to add that in as a resource to the community, just so that it was passed and
Oh,
connecting
mhm.
that legislation or offering that up here. I also updated the numbers, the
Oh,
the
this is
demographics
the
of the
community
board members.
demographics?
Yeah, this is Community Board 8 demographics.
We actually have this information on,
The borough president, like,
no kidding.
yeah, this is a part of that office's annual report.
oh.
I will
I
say.
never knew
I will say it's very interesting that there are certain numbers that have changed drastically, and I feel like people who fall into those categories are all opting for, prefer not to respond or no response.
Uh-huh.
So it is very interesting to me where some numbers,
Huh.
have changed and some have,
Uh-huh.
this
This is just us, right?
yeah, this is just
Okay.
us.
All right.
And
Huh.
this is based on, this might be old data here, this is from a community profile that, the city updates.
Mhm.
And basically, these numbers are broadly representative of what the district looks like.
Oh, I see. So the numbers in the district versus the numbers on the community board.
Yeah,
So in some cases, they track pretty closely, in others, they don't. Interesting.
yeah,
Um, um, That's, so the big disparity there is in the 45 to 64 age category, which makes sense, you know.
Did they redraw the district between these two stats?
no, it's
Yeah.
been the same.
Yeah,
I think they both use 2010 census data. So obviously it's a bit outdated. But, meaning that this district, this uses, the data from 2010 and then, sorry, there's the map of the funding that is also based on 2010, but that the district map has not changed. The data may have changed. I can double check that.
yeah, I mean, certainly the 2020 data must be available.
You would
Wouldn't,
think,
yeah, I would think they'd be using 2020, not 2010.
see, this is, I
Wow.
just don't know that this
Geez.
population fact finder is as friendly as these community district profiles, which I really
Uh.
like.
Okay, well, 19 to 23,
Okay, so
all right.
I'll update this. So I just found these numbers to be interesting. These numbers have jumped quite a bit since, to be honest,
I'm sorry,
we
which-
started tracking these.
Which numbers are you referring?
So this is
Oh, other
other, but
and no
it's,
response?
yeah, but
Right.
it's really prefer not to respond, prefer not to
Right.
say.
Right.
And it's also interesting, I mean, the borough president's report has numbers, has, things like Caribbean, and a few other categories, so it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
say, where those numbers fall into these other categories, cause it could
Right.
be sort of you know, a person could fall into multiple categories, obviously, but, so this is how people have identified themselves.
Right,
And these numbers, the borough president had tracked, but in the last 2 years, it was not, the reporting has changed. The borough president, the current borough president also added level of education,
mhm,
so that, you know, that's something that we could add if we want, but, I guess it is a new metric. So I just wanted to run that by you, or we can, you know,
yeah, I don't know that education is necessarily relevant.
yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Um, Apologies for the scrolling. Then another map is in here. This is a real short connection to the resource guide. I think we incorporated that last year. So let me see if I can. So there's nothing necessarily new on the map itself. I am adding the fiscal year 26 numbers in.
Mhm.
But, so I'll probably I can probably have that done tonight. I just was having some formatting issues.
Okay.
But that is it. So anything else that we want to, so each of us are going to write a bit on, free speech. And
Mhm.
I mean, do we want to have anything about just the act of talking about equity as, or the road ahead in terms of ensuring the rule of law, things like that, in order to be able to continue to, ensure there's progress for everyone.
I don't know, you know, it's a question of how deep you want to get into the current political situation. I'm not sure, I mean, you know, we all, I'm sure, have strong feelings about the current political situation. But I think we, you know, we really do want to stick as closely as possible to the equity issue. There's obviously, you know, reams and reams of information we could discuss about what's going on right now, but I think we want to stay as close to our mission as possible. So, you know, I would say less is better, but, you know, not to duck the important issues like, you know, free speech and hate speech, and where do you draw the line, and is there a line to be drawn?
Yeah,
Yeah,
How people can safely exercise the right,
mhm.
you know, can provide tips for that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and maybe, do we want to say something about the immigration situation? I don't, you know, do we want to get into that? I don't know that at this point in the community boarding district, there has been a real problem over immigration, in the sense of, you know, people being snatched off the street or something like that, or you know, being accosted and asked for identification. I'm not aware of that. I know it has happened elsewhere, but I don't think it's happened in our area, or at least I'm not aware of it if it has.
yeah.
So this isn't really due until the June board meeting,
Correct.
yeah, when all the special committees have to be renewed or not. there's still plenty of time to work on it.
Yeah, I would like it to be finished by June 1st, just so that we can give people enough time
Yeah,
to review it.
yeah, so ideally before the June executive committee meeting. But yeah, give everybody plenty of time before the board meeting, which in June is toward the end of the month. The irony, the irony is we move the June board meeting as we have in previous years, because the Philharmonic always performed on the second Tuesday of the month, which is when the board meeting is. This year, they're not performing on the second Tuesday of June. So, but we'd already moved the date, so, yeah. And actually, I think it makes sense to have the June board meeting toward the end of the month, because it gives the committees an opportunity to meet. You know, if your committee meets after the second Tuesday of the month, there's no discussion of what you did until the following September, by which point, if anybody even remembers it, it may or may not be relevant.
Yeah,
So it is a good practice.
yeah. Sebastian, on your last point on exercising rights,
How to safely.
safely, I think that's an interesting point. Would you wanna take a crack at that, or whatever you sort of
Yeah,
envision?
I'll try to write a paragraph and send it to you.
Okay,
Good. I mean, in that respect, I was saying, this is a personal opinion. I was glad to see that mask bill was changed substantially from what it originally was.
Agreed.
Because the original version I thought was awful,
agreed,
yeah. And now it becomes relevant only when a crime has been committed, so that's better.
yeah, I agree. And that's the reason why I supported it as well. And conversely, right now we are seeing certain agents who are wearing masks.
Oh, that video of that poor woman up in Boston. I mean, that, and the other woman, the person who was videoing it said, is this a kidnapping? Because that's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah,
And basically, that's what it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
So will there be appropriate legislation in New York State? I think that's probably the extent. But to limit the use of face masks by authorities.
Yeah, hiding their identity.
I mean, there is the same concern about doxing and other things, protesters and people who are, who are doing the right thing in their positions, whether you're protesting or whether you're, keeping public safety, whatever.
Yeah.
So protecting people from those kinds of, doxing and other things that can violate their own personal safety or their family's safety.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. I mean, law enforcement authorities in New York City have to identify themselves. If they don't have identification, you can ask for identification, they have to identify themselves. How do federal authorities not have that same requirement?
I think in this instance, it is required, I just don't know if there's compliance.
Okay, that could be.
So there is an address code for certain agents. But if they're asked to provide their badge or identification, they are supposed to do that. We can also reference, the Know Your Rights training.
Yeah.
That, I'll go back to this one here.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I think there should be some mention of that, and yeah, you're absolutely right, Margaret. There should be some mention of that in the report. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that we're missing? So we can get the PowerPoint from this and then,
Before we quit, I think we have to
the minutes.
approve the minutes, exactly.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the March minutes.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. Any comments, any discussion on the minutes?
No,
Okay, all in favor?
yes,
Great. Okay, excellent. So let's see. If you all could, my goal is to send you the finalized map and what's a reasonable date? Let me do this. Let's see if I could get the map and my paragraph and some of these updates, you know, adding a couple of these resources. And updating the data under the district. What if I get that to you by Wednesday? Maybe we can swap paragraphs. How long do you need to send the paragraph? How much time?
I can send it, I'll do it out tomorrow or the weekend.
Okay,
yeah, same for me.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So then the goal is to have a final draft by next Friday. Is that fine?
Probably
is that
a
too
week from
soon?
tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's a great goal,
yeah.
yeah.
Just so
I
we
mean,
don't forget.
You have to have a goal, yeah. Mhm.
So we can do that, you know,
Okay.
before, you know, graduations start and all the things or whatever else people have going on in their lives.
Yeah,
And then once we have like these pieces, then I do wanna give people some time to just sit with it. I'd like to share it with, Julie and Farah.
yeah,
And just see what else they would add, and then we can circulate it to the full board. Ideally, before Memorial Day, so that it's just out and
Yep.
on its way.
Yep.
Does that seem good?
Yeah.
Okay, great,
good plan.
excellent. Well, thank you all. If there's not anything else, I cannot make a motion because I have to remain neutral, but if someone were to offer one up, I would welcome it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved. All right. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret.
Thanks.
So this is the last meeting, right?
Yes, this is the last meeting.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.